Hi, hello. I'm your host, Chloe. Today I will be talking about Graduation Day, written by Joelle Charbonneau. This is the third and final installment in the testing trilogy. As always, the full-length episodes such as this one include spoilers. If you would like to listen to a spoiler-free mini-episode on this book, simply click episode 3A, Graduation Day. In this episode, I will be discussing the rebellion, the impossible task, and the chosen one trope, changes in character, the resolution. Let's talk about lit. I know that I didn't cover the rebellion in the last episode. I chose to wait until this episode because I wanted to discuss it in its entirety without spoiling anything. Let's recap. The man who helped Sia during the fourth stage of the testing is Simon Dean. He is one of the two leaders of the rebellion, the other being Renetta. Simon is rumored to lead the faction of rebels that only wants to use violence if absolutely necessary in the chance that President Collander's proposal fails. Renetta is rumored to lead the faction of rebels that is armed and pushing to launch a violent attack before the proposal is even given. Michael Gallen, the Five Lakes Colony escort, is a member of the rebellion. He is given a position in President Collander's office by means of Simon's influence. He divulges information about the rebellion to Sia without Simon's knowledge or approval. If you remember, in their conversation that spans pages 229 to 237 in Independent Study, Michael asks Sia to keep the location of the tangible proof of the testing horrors on her radar in case she can obtain anything useful. This is where the recordings that are collected by Raph, whose father is one of the heads of the Department of Education, come into play. The recordings are conversations between testing candidates, including Sia and Thomas. Sia and Raph give the recordings to Michael, who takes them to the rebel camp. Upon giving the tapes to Simon, Michael is shot and killed. This twist hit me square in the gut, let me tell you. It was well executed. It is revealed that Simon is in cahoots with Dr. Barnes. The rebellion is designed to root out all internal opposition to Dr. Barnes and the testing. Those who oppose are being recruited and led by Simon, who arms them and whispers the plan into their ears. The very same plan that he devised with Dr. Barnes, who has safety officials ready to execute all of the rebels once they act. All they need is President Collander's proposal for a shift of power to fail, which would be the spark to cause the flame. Speaking of President Collander, she wants to minimize losses as much as possible. As of her conversation with Sia that begins on page 20, she does not have enough support for her proposal. Since failure is seemingly inevitable, she enlists Sia to carry out an impossible task: assassinate 11 officials and Simon Dean. This task is impossible, or it should be. Let's talk about why. At the very beginning of the book, on page 11, when Sia decides to travel to President Collander's office to discuss the rebellion and the events that occurred in the resolution of the previous book, she thinks to herself, "This is her job, not mine." Ding, 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 that is correct. If only President Collander felt that way. This is where the impossible task is assigned to the failed embodiment of the chosen one trope. If you aren't familiar with the chosen one trope, here's the gist. The chosen one is a protagonist who is the only one capable of defeating the antagonist or great evil and saving the world from a grim fate. Typically, there is some form of divine, mystical, or supernatural intervention that makes this so. There is something special about this protagonist, something that justifies their being the world's only hope. Think of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. Harry's destiny or fate is to face and defeat Lord Voldemort. Because of the magical intervention that bound their very souls and destinies together, Harry is the only one that can do the job. He is the chosen one. The issue with this trope in the context of the testing trilogy is that it doesn't work. For starters, there is no divine, mystical, or supernatural intervention. There is nothing about Sia that makes her so special that she is the only one who can possibly carry out the rebellion's plan and dismantle an entire system. Yes, she has strong leadership skills. She is intelligent and hardworking, but so is the majority of the university student body. That is the point. The testing is meant to find the brightest and most capable minds from the 18 colonies, and the entrance exam is meant to evaluate the abilities of the Tosu City applicants. Due to the unforgiving nature of the testing and the university, the students that are in attendance are meant to be the best of the best. Referencing back to the Harry Potter example, let's think of it like this. Harry is the chosen one. There is only one of him in all of Hogwarts. He has a connection to Lord Voldemort that no one else has. Sia is meant to be the chosen one. There are students as or more capable than Sia in all fields of the university. That's like if Hogwarts was full of Harry Potters, but for some reason, the Harry Potter was the chosen one. How would you be able to pick him out from the crowd? What would distinguish him as the one for the job, other than the fact that he's the protagonist? Such is the dilemma in Graduation Day. Now, I am by no means saying that a female protagonist, especially a young one, is inherently incapable of saving the world. I am saying, however, that such a protagonist should not be capable of successfully saving the world largely by herself, unless it is declared so by divine, mystical, or supernatural powers. In addition, there are several factors of Sia's character that actually make her less qualified or capable of being the chosen one. We know that she is, quote, the youngest student at the university, page 4. That means that she has had the least amount of exposure to the university and Tosu City, as well as experiences in both. She is from a colony, the smallest one, which means that she is not knowledgeable about the layout of the city, its locations, or its officials. She has no formal combat or weapons training, other than being taught how to use basic firearms in her colony to ward off animals. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, taking up this task goes against everything that she believes in. It violates the moral code that she has lived by in the previous 2 books, which brings me to my next point. Sia is not the only character to change throughout the course of Graduation Day. We see developments and shifts in supporting characters such as Enzo, Raph, and Will. When I originally sat down to write the script for this episode, I was going to argue that Sia largely, if not completely, abandoned her moral code and beliefs. After revisiting the book, I realized that my argument would likely fall through. On one hand, Sia betrays her beliefs by accepting a task that would require her to kill people. Once she commits to the task, she recruits her closest friends to help her. She fully intends to carry out the plan and kill the targets when the time comes, and her expectation is the same for the rest of her team. The other members of her team kill for her because they trust what she believes to be the right decision. On the other hand, Sia doesn't directly kill anyone. She does shoot a safety official in the stomach, whose death is not confirmed, as well as Simon in the chest, who is put down by a bullet to the head courtesy of Will. When faced with Dr. Barnes, she is unable to pull the trigger. On page 270, she thinks to herself, I need to fire. I need to kill. But I can't. No matter how much I want to succeed, I know that Dr. Barnes was wrong to choose me, because I can't look into the eyes of an unarmed man and fire. This is the Sia that I know and have grown to love. This is also the Sia that is the failed chosen one. I think that in order to maintain consistency of character, Charbonneau should have embarked on one of two paths. The first, Sia is the chosen one. She has gray morals but is driven by the desire to help people. She has some quality that designates her as the only person who is capable of carrying out the president's plan. When the time comes, she kills Dr. Barnes and/or Simon Dean. The second, Sia is not the chosen one. She has strong, unmovable morals. She is driven by the desire to help people, but is not willing to take lives. She is one of the many capable people for the job, and perhaps is even overlooked for the position of leader. She assists in the carrying out of the president's plan, but refuses to kill anyone, including Dr. Barnes and Simon Dean. I can see where Charbonneau was going for this task that conflicts with the character's morals, but I don't think that the execution was done well. Sia should have abandoned her morals completely in order to complete the task, or she should have not accepted the task in the first place. This back and forth that we see leads to temporary and monotonous changes in character. I wish we would have seen more of Enzo in this book. I think that it was a shame and a waste to introduce a reliable character shrouded in mystery, only to forego them. I understand that Charbonneau wanted to sacrifice a supporting character and make them seem untrustworthy, but I wish it wasn't Enzo. I err on the side that his motivation to listen to the recording device was purely out of fear for Sia and the desire to help her. He may be a Tosu City student, but he alludes to the disparity between social classes within the city and the hardships that even the privileged can face. I gushed about Raph in the previous episode, so I won't go on about him too much here. I thought that the character development that he was granted in this book was meaningful and helps explain his relationship with Sia. The minor subplot with his sister and the experiments was a gripping, if somewhat predictable, addition. I wish that we could have seen more development in terms of the relationship that he shared with his father, but I think that there was enough information presented that we could see why he chose to be the one to eliminate his father when the time came. I had mixed feelings about Will's redemption arc towards the resolution of the novel. I liked Will in the first book, up until his ulterior motives were revealed. Charbonneau made him an antagonist, a small picture antagonist as I like to say, and used dramatic irony throughout the second book. We as the audience were fully aware of what Will had done, even in the moments surrounding the induction where he was a supportive teammate and seemingly a friend. In my opinion, I feel like his redemption arc would have been more satisfying had he been redeemed earlier. Sia only allows him to be a part of the team because they are short-handed. It is a decision made out of survival and necessity of success. I'm not saying that there is anything inherently wrong with having a character navigating a relationship based on survival, as I have mentioned before. I just think that it should be fully developed and not a minor little side thought. Had Will done something to redeem himself prior to the execution of the plan, we would have been able to root for him. We would have been able to feel satisfied that this witty and gleeful character from the Madison colony had resurfaced and proven to have more depth than the self-preservation that he exhibited prior. That being said, he was integral to the success of the mission. He helped create the distraction as well as kill Simon. Most interesting and surprising was that he gave Sia the credit for Dr. Barnes' execution. Did he do this because he was unaware of who actually killed him? Or did he do this to protect Sia, knowing that her failure could condemn them all? We'll never know. I'm glad that he stuck around until the end, though. The resolution. Oof. I had some pretty mixed feelings about it. I remember yelling at the ceiling and ranting to my husband for about 20 minutes after finishing it. Yeah. So where do my problems lie? Dr. Barnes' revelation. I was relatively surprised when, on page 240, Sia discovers the documents that state she was recommended to fail after the 4th phase of the testing. I've made my case for why she isn't the chosen one in the context of the president's plan, but I would argue that she deserved her acceptance into the university. That being said, I can understand the rationale of the committee's recommendation that she fail. Because of her morals and principles, Sia is not a leader that would be unbothered by sacrifice and loss of life. In the current climate of the United Commonwealth, and with the insinuated tension beyond its borders, leaders must be able to do whatever it takes to protect and promote its safety. This is why Dr. Barnes, on page 266, confirms that he told Simon to help her during the testing by giving her the anti-truth serum because, quote, I needed you to think clearly about your interview answers so that I could make a case for you being accepted to the university. This, in light of the other information that Sia and Raph found in Dr. Barnes' home office, doesn't sit quite right with me. It is contradictory to who he has been established to be as the antagonist. If he is the head of an autonomous entity that was established by his grandfather, why does he choose to provide aid in minute, secretive ways? He has the power to change the methods of the testing and the university. He has the power to change the experimentation of radiation on failed candidates and students. Why doesn't he do more? Why does he help devise a rebellion that is meant to gather all opposition to him and the testing in order to methodically execute them if he supports their cause? Arguably, Dr. Barnes doesn't actually plan to execute them, as he says on page 271, but Simon is ready to carry on without him. I see the direction that Charbonneau was going with removing this layer, but if Dr. Barnes is as clever as he's revealed to be, why enlist Simon's help at all? Why work with someone who is so committed to the cause that they are willing and able to terminate you in order to reach the goal? I think this twist could have had such a tremendous payoff if the setup had been done more decisively and thoroughly. It fell short, in my opinion. I'm by no means saying that the antagonist should remain static, just that dynamic characters should be fully developed at each stage throughout the story. Zine. I thought his death was so anticlimactic. What was the point of maintaining his presence in all 3 installments, whether it be in Sia's thoughts or in their conversations, just to kill him off during their official reunion? Why use his death solely for the emotional punch, but abandon it nearly as soon as it happens? I also think that it was incredibly cliche and convenient. The description on page 274 is as follows. Zine flashes the smile that I grew up idolizing as he rushes towards me. I start to reply when I see movement to my left, the barrel of Simon's gun as it is placed in position. I push Thomas to the side and raise my weapon, but I know I will be too late, that after all I have been through, I will die as Simon pulls the trigger. Gunfire fills the room. A scream rips from my throat, but the bullet never finds me because Zine gets there first. My brother jerks as the bullet punches into him and groans when he hits the ground next to Simon. There are 3 people, Zine, Thomas, and Will, between Sia and Simon. She manages to push Thomas out of the way and raise her weapon, but these actions are delayed in comparison to Simon's. I want to know, did Zine know that Simon was going to shoot his sister, or was it coincidence that he was between them? He's described as, quote, rushing towards her, which means that his back would have been to Simon. If the following events happened so quickly, would he have had time to turn around and see what was going to happen before taking action? I bring this up because I think that it would change the emotional weight of his death. If he was unaware and was just caught between them, it's devastating in that the reunion was stained in his blood. If he was aware and intentionally placed himself between them, it can be viewed as a tragic loss but the noble sacrifice of a big brother. Regardless, I think that his death was anticlimactic and should have been drawn out if it was truly necessary to the story. The happy ending. Imagine my air quotes. I appreciate the sentiments and purpose of bringing a story and a series to a close. I expected loose ends to be tied and for there to be an open ending. It's not so much that I think the resolution is bad, as much as it is that I would have liked to see something different, though I'm not entirely sure what that would be. The experiments on failed testing candidates and university students is explored more in detail, and in spite of the promises of Drew Owens, the experiments will continue. While Gil and Emily were luckily unscathed and were able to leave, their memories were erased for security purposes. I agree with Sia when she says on page 288, "When I consider the president's logic, I cannot disagree. And yet, part of me wonders if we can ever truly learn from what we have done if we continue to suppress or erase the past." This is something that has not changed substantially despite the success of the plan and the president's proposal. The testing has been disbanded and, quote, "The president and her office will work closely with the education department to create a new selection system for the university, one that will be the same for both Tosu City and Colony students." Page 288. While this is a change, there are no details or reason to believe that the new system will be any better than the previous one. I expected both of these things to be completely transformed or eradicated, but that wasn't the case. At least Sia and Thomas have found solace and healing back in Five Lakes. I'm glad that Sia decided to travel back to Tosu City and continue her work there, as I believe it makes the most sense for her character. I will always wonder what the future of the United Commonwealth and the girl from Five Lakes Colony will hold. This is the sign of an, overall, well-written story. I did really enjoy this series. I found comfort and appeal in its similarities to Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games, but I love it because of what makes it unique. Sia, in spite of her human flaws, is a powerful female character and a positive role model. I hope to find and create protagonists like her. There you have it. My thoughts on Joelle Charbonneau's Graduation Day. I do own Verify, which is the first installment in another dystopian series by the same author. I put it on pause because I had a hard time getting into it, but if you are interested in hearing me cover that book, please leave a comment or send me an email at letstalkaboutlitpodcast@gmail.com, all lowercase, no apostrophe. Join me next time for episodes 4A and 4B, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Let's talk about lit. Thanks for listening.